So what else do we have here in terms of business questions today? Business brokerage, any deals, any kind of odd things cropping up? I have a property management company that I just listed, so I got to put together the business profile and the SIM for that and take that out.
So I got it's probably it'll fall under commercial, a guy that wants car washes. So that's probably going to be just a commercial transit. Would it be?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are business brokers that specialize only in car washes.
Okay. Is there a certain resource that I can look out for that?
I would definitely go to Business Reference Guide online and pull up car washes, take a look.
And then I had the couple real estate agents that wanted to buy real estate agencies, but I wasn't seeing anything on Biz Buy Sell.
Yeah. You know, same thing. Go into your Business Reference Guide, take a look at you know what they go for, and then as you're talking to different people, I mean, you may come across somebody who's got a brokerage firm that's you know wanting to retire, wanting to sell. When you go into Biz Buy Sell and look for businesses that are already listed, you're going to have a problem getting paid 9 times out of 10. So you're better off if you're going to represent a buyer, you know, try and get a buyer representation agreement from them where they agree to pay your fee. Otherwise, you're probably going to have a problem getting paid.
Did you do that with the nursery, Tonya?
No, because it was referred to me by an eXp Realty. I did talk to the buyer about a rep agreement, but it had already been to the property. There was already a deal going and the realty agent just couldn't write the offer. So it was a little bit different circumstance. I probably, if it wasn't the way it was, I wouldn't be involved with it because the buyer didn't want to sign a rep agreement. The compensation that the listing agent had was extremely low because she was a residential agent. So she took the whole thing at like a 4% deal, business and, you know, and real estate. And so, I mean, literally, you know, it's overall, it's a $3.5–4 million deal that basically you're getting paid like it's a $300,000 deal. I mean, it really is just that way, but nonetheless, it's kind of a goodwill because it's a eXp Realty agent and she's got other things going on. And I'm trying to educate her about, you know, don't take on buyer engagements without making sure that there's a way to get compensated, because otherwise you're dependent on a listing agent that may or may not have known what they were doing, right? And like in this case, the listing agent is another residential agent, so she had no clue. So yeah, so I got that. I've got a printing company that I'm trying to get listed. I have to finish up their valuation, and that one should be pretty good. Although, I mean, printing business is a declining industry, right? Because so much is online now. So anytime you're dealing with a business that's declining, it makes it more complicated because your pool of buyers is somewhat smaller. The attractability of that firm, even though it's doing good cash flow and all of that, you know, can be complicated. So, and then there's another one that Jeff was helping me with. That was a senior services, kind of a home healthcare type thing. So looking at that too, not sure where that's going to go, because the business declined drastically. The seller decided to stop marketing as of when COVID hit and hasn't started marketing again. And so when you're in that senior home healthcare business, you're dealing with people. Oftentimes it's somewhat like palliative care. And so you've got a client base that's dying essentially. I mean, not all of them, but some of them are. So you're going to have a natural attrition of your client base. And if you're not bringing in new clients simultaneously, so when you cut off your marketing, it's just like, of course the business is declining. What did you think would happen? You know? So,
Living
so
is
yeah.
bad for the cemetery business, huh?
Oh, I tell you what, man, there are certain industries that benefited so much from COVID is unreal. And you know, not the types of industries that you normally would want to benefit in that way. So anyhow.
So if we get an arrangement set up to where the buyer's paying us, let's say it's 10% on a $3 million deal.
Yep.
They having to bring 3.3 to close, like they may get a loan for the 3 million and they're going to have to write a check for the additional 300 for our commission.
Yep.
Or will they do that like 3.3 financed and then that'll just come from the lender?
Lenders typically will, well, a lot of lenders won't finance the broker fee as when it's coming from the buyer. And so a lot of times, you know, you can structure things a little bit differently, like in the offer. You can say that the purchase price is going to be 3.3 and the seller's going to pay the broker fee. And so that from a lender standpoint, they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, the purchase price is 3.3.
Okay.
You can, so there are ways to structure it. You also, I can tell you though, that usually in your buyer rep agreement, you want a clause in there that says if you are able to get anything from the seller side, that you're going to offset the buyer's obligation. So you're not double dipping, and you always want to try and get from the seller, if at all possible. So if you're representing the buyer and you're going out, you're talking to sellers, you're finding a business for them, then you can say, you know, when you talk to the seller, you can let the seller know that you have a buyer and so forth, and that you want to represent the business as well. You have dual agency there, and that you want the seller to pay a fee. I've had sellers tell me no and just say, no, you represent the buyer. You're not really representing me. So, you know, your buyer can pay your fee. It's like, okay. So you just have to see what you can negotiate it. But at the end of the day, you need the ability to get compensated. Otherwise, you're just the hamster on the habit trail. You're running and running and running, but getting absolutely nowhere.
Okay. So when we say, hey, we're going to charge 10% for the business, like there's not the expectation. I mean, maybe there is, but it's not normal for us to say, okay, well, we're going to automatically split that with the buyer agent if we're listing that business.
You got to keep in mind that you can do that. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. And in Florida, that would be the case. But in the rest of the world, it can be difficult. So, or at least in California, it can be very difficult. Probably 85-90% of the brokers in California will not share fees at all. As a matter of fact, unless you can tell them that, you know, your buyer is paying your fee, they won't even send you information on the business. They just won't. So,
I've had that happen once here already.
Yeah. So you definitely want an agreement, you know, with your buyer, but you also want to offset it if you're able to get from the seller, anything from the sell side, and you always want to ask. And so there are brokers out there that will go ahead and share fees, and they may say, yeah, I'll give you, 3%. And if they're going to give you 3% and you have a deal for 10% with your buyer, then you're going to offset it. Now your buyer's only going to need to pay you 7%. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in California, and in probably most of the country, but I know in California, you can't, all fees, all referral fees, all compensation has to be disclosed. You can't have, hidden profits. or receive any kind of hidden compensation. It all has to be very much disclosed. So you want to make sure whatever you're getting from either side, or, you know, even if you're receiving from both sides to the buyer, you want to show them, okay, I'm getting this 3% from the seller, but here's your spreadsheet, you know, here's how it's going to affect you, and it's being applied or credited towards you. So it's going to knock off that amount of money from your obligation to me on the fees. So you just want to make sure it's all very disclosed. But the other thing that can happen is you might come across a deal where the agent says, yeah, you know, I'll go ahead and split fee with you. I'll give you 3%, but maybe they only took a 6% listing, right? So now when you have to disclose fees to both sides, you're disclosing, okay, now they're giving me 3%. I have 10% agreement with my buyer. Now the listing agent's going to come back to you and want 5% from your buyer. And they're going to say, oh, well, I'm splitting my fee with you, so you need to split your fee with me, right? And then it's like, well, I can't, because my contract says that anything I get from the sell side has to be credited towards and discounted off of, you know, my buyers. So, you know, now you've got another negotiation that you have to do, because you've got an issue between.
Now, is that California specific? Because as far as I know, we don't have any kind of compensation disclosure laws here.
You don't?
Not that I know.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean, we have to give them a net sheet. I mean, that's
Yeah.
illegal here, but I mean, and all of that is on there. So maybe that counts as the disclosure.
Well, that would be disclosure. Yeah. Yeah. Because also SBA lenders pay referral fees. So if you're going to be collecting an SBA loan or collecting a referral fee from referring them to an SBA lender, that has to be disclosed, even though that's not going to be on your net sheet anywhere, because that referral fee typically comes from the bank or from the lender directly to you. But if you don't disclose it in California, then technically you can be disgorged of your entire fee of everything. So it's not worth, you know, trying to hide that 1% when you've got a 10% fee on the other, you know, on the business. Getting 1% on the loan and trying to hide that from anybody is like a lie, because you know, the last thing you want is to have your,
that.
yeah.
Mm.
So, what else? What else is going on?
Question about the SBA lender that you